Is Mr. Wasserman a picture, or is he staring deeply at me?
He's so concentrated, so fixated on your every word that he's not even moving. He's like that a lot. All right, I'm going to mute everybody except Rabbi Bassman, of course, because we got to hear him. So don't take it personally. And then we're going to get right into it. Here we go. Okay. Good evening. Thank you very much. We have with us a very special guest tonight, Rabbi Yossi Bassman, who is the director of the Beta Hillel High School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, Rabbi, what is Beta Hillel High? What is its backstory? Whose idea was it? When did it start? Walk us down a little bit of its history so we can get a feel for what's so special about Beta High School.
So firstly, good evening. I would say that it's appropriate for me to share my credentials, that I was born and bred in Bassman, I think since 1995. And I don't think I've ever left. Right, Yossi?
You never leave. We would never let you leave.
So I was
holding on to you. We're claiming you as our own.
An original member of the Bassman Boys Choir. I don't think it's ever had it's never been at that level since. So that's why I am intimidated. That's why I'm intimidated, and I hope I don't underwhelm. So Beta Hillel High School, the backstory, so I'm going to speak very just factually and literally. So Lubavitch, Wisconsin, it's a little complicated when you compare it to the history of Lubavitch, Illinois, just because Lubavitch, Illinois, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Hechtel Shalom, in essence, began it, though not officially. When Rabbi Moskowitz Shalom came, that's when Lubavitch, Illinois was incorporated. Rabbi Yisrael Shmutkin, he should live and be well, moved down here 51 years ago. It was actually the fifth state in the union to get a shliach, and as many good Lubavitch organizations, the first educational institution they opened up was a preschool. It's called Jewish Beginnings Lubavitch Preschool in the early 70s. It currently has enrollment of 225, and it has literally, it's the premier Jewish preschool in the community. It has the widest spectrum of the Jewish community enrolled there. And that was really for 25, 30 years, Lubavitch's role and presence in Milwaukee Jewish community's educational system. Hillel Academy was a elementary middle school that was founded by the late Rabbi Shapiro, who was a big Torah scholar, and it is the legacy day school. It was, again, opened in the 60s. In the late 90s and early 2000s, it fell on some very hard times from a financial angle, from an enrollment angle, from a leadership perspective, and the federation who both housed the school as well as provided about 30% of their annual budget, they told the board of Hillel Academy that unless they had a complete change in the leadership of the school, they would pull their funding and in essence shut the school down. So Hillel Academy turned to Lubavitch, Wisconsin to take over the school. So this was in 2003. And there was a lot of internal deliberation. Lubavitch was doing a lot of great work, many Chabad houses, many shluchim, and taking over a school is not for the faint of heart. But it was decided in 2004 that Lubavitch would become the managing organization for Hillel Academy. So really from day one, and this is the origins of the high school, when you're running a elementary middle school through 8th grade, and especially when Lubavitch took it over, it became a group effort amongst the shluchim with families that were involved with the Chabad houses, with families that were really growing in their commitment to Yiddishkeit, to take really the big leap and enroll their children in a authentic Jewish education. And to watch every year the graduating class, the 8th graders of Hillel Academy, who were on a high, they were inspired. So many of them would go on to yeshivas out of town. Some would go to a local yeshiva, but a good 50-60% of the graduating class would, because there were no local options, go to public school. So really from Lubavitch taking it over in the early 2000s, it's every year was a krechts. Do I have to translate that, Rabbi Epstein?
It's like krechts,
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you say krechts in English.
It's like, if only we had a high school here to open up, and to have a place for our Hillel Academy graduating class, whose families made an incredible commitment, many of them, to choose the Jewish education, for them to move on to some of the best public schools in the state, but lacking a Jewish education was unfortunate. So finally in 2012, when Hillel Academy, the elementary middle school, had doubled enrollment, had a principal already for 15 years, the same principal. They had an endowment supporting the school. It was fiscally sound. They were ready for the next challenge to open up a high school. And that was largely Rabbi Mendel Schmutkin, with blessing, support, and guidance of his parents. I say that to open up a high school, you either have to be naive or stupid. So Rabbi Schmutkin's not naive and he's not stupid. I think I take the naive part of that truth, and that's the backstory.
So, okay. So besides being incredibly blessed to grow up in Beis Menachem and having a chassid's endless enthusiasm and zeal, which you humbly describe as naive, how do you fit into this picture? How did you become involved in Bader High? What's your backstory and how you came to Bader High?
So my wife, I forced her to join this Zoom high. And she actually, whenever I talk in front of her, I actually started giving a class again in school, and she was observing me. She corrects me in the middle of class, so she will correct if you let her be off mute, she'll correct me. When my wife and I got married, it was obvious we really wanted to go on shlichus. I put that in hyphens. We really wanted to. We both were inspired to spread Torah and mitzvahs, to make a change, to be part of the Rebbe's vision for preparing the world for Mashiach. I would say that I very much did not have a very specific genre, or I wanted to do this specifically, work with teens, work with college students. I actually did not want to work with teens, and I don't want to work with teens, and I continue to seek a way of running a high school without teens. I don't think it's possible.
Well, they're the ones who ruin it. You got this great school, and then the kids come and they mess up all your wonderful plans.
So the way it works in Milwaukee, I'm sure it works the same way in Chicago, is that when Lubavitch, Wisconsin is seeking to open up a new institution, they let the word out that we're looking for candidates. Specifically, it was a meeting of the about 20-25 shluchim here in Milwaukee, and Rabbi Mendel Schmutkin announced that this ongoing conversation about starting a high school is reality, and please get the word out. If you know anybody who's interested in signing up, have them send the resume to me. So my older sister and brother-in-law, Leah and Lady Emmer, were already shluchim here in Milwaukee, working with seniors. My sister teaches in elementary middle school. So Levi gave me a call. Rabbi Schmutkin's opening up a high school. Do you want to put in your resume? So I had another 5-6 options of shluchos. That's a joke. I didn't. So I said, sure. And I sent mine and my wife's resumes in. What was on the resume was a lot of creativity. I was 23, maybe. I was 23 and a half, maybe. I've actually, when people say, how old are you? I feel that it's appropriate that I could kind of be a little flexible with the answer. I've been 30 for a while. Like none of your business would be an appropriate response, but so I kind of sometimes
I've been 30 for a while too.
but I really think I was 23. And we had an initial, this was pre-COVID, by the way. We had I don't know what the medium was, but we had a video conference interview with Rabbi Shmotkin. He said, "Why do you want to go on shluchos?" And I already knew what to say. I said, because there's no greater privilege. I didn't know what to say. This is what I believed. And I believe that there's no greater privilege than to be part of the Rebbe's army of changing the world or bringing Mashiach. I said, fine. I think we had several more conversations. And then he was in New York, and I met with him in a distinct Crown Heights basement. And I think later on, when he told me why he gave me the nod, he said, "You were really into it." And I was kind of surprised. So I'll let you give it a try.
So what year is that? What year did you join the staff, the team? What year did this occur?
So we got married Lag BaOmer May.
Your wife is watching. You better know.
It's either 2012 or 2013. I think it's 2012. And our conversation started probably February 2013. And we flew out about 2 days after our anniversary to Milwaukee to begin planning. I don't know. We didn't know much about what it meant to plan for opening up a school that fall.
So 2014, fall of 2014 is day one.
13, 14, fall 13.
So fall of 2013 is day one, and you open up with 500 students, 2 students. How do you start a high school?
Right. So often schools start because there's kids that need a school, right? That would
Not in Chabad. We start the school and find the kids. We don't wait for them to come knocking.
Right. No, but like in Chicago, Hillel Academy opened up because there was a group of families. I know my Chicago history, by the way. I'm not going to brag. I do know it. The Heffs, the Zimmermans, maybe even the Kosovskis. They probably were too old. But Rabbi Moskowitz started Hillel Academy because we needed a cheder. So there was one family, I'll mention their name in blessings, the Gelfmans, who had a graduating 8th grade boy and a older boy who went to Memphis, and it was not a good experience, a yeshiva in Memphis. So the parents were on board. So once we had 2 students, we were ready to open. When I got to Milwaukee, these are 2 very eloquent, smart, and firm boys. And they told me many, many times in no uncertain terms, "Rabbi, we think you're doing an incredible thing. It's just not for us." Like, it's really not for us.
Thanks, but no thanks.
So we kind of had 2 boys. Later, a month or 2 later, there were also 2 local girls who, one really wanted it, the other one kind of wanted it. But then we quickly opened it up for out-of-towners, which has been our model ever since. And I think we had 16 students our first year between our boys and girls division.
16, and how many? And so let's fast forward now. It's school year 2020, 2021. It's a crazy world. The world's upside down. How many students are there registered for Bader High?
We have 50 students.
50, so you went from 16 to 50. And how many of them are what we call out of town or dorming or boarding or not from the immediate
so
area?
It's about 50-50. It's about 50-50, and that's where we want it.
And is it 50-50 boys, girls? I mean, is it 25?
50-50 local and out of town.
And what's the population makeup, boys, girls?
Saying like identify as male, female, or
who am I to judge?
We're not that judgmental.
We're not that judgmental.
This year, we have a larger boys. Last year was a larger girls, so it fluctuates. But we have 28 boys and the balance girls.
And what is the mission statement that is particular to Bader Hillel High? What is its reason for being?
So first of all, I'd love to see Emmanuel Zilberman. I really would. Like, obviously, if it's like halachically not appropriate, I wouldn't, but hi, Emmanuel.
How about Mr. Sharif is on too?
I just saw
him. Yeah, seen enough.
So the mission statement of Beta Hillel High is to support each of our students in developing a more deep and personal relationship with Hashem and Torah. And we mean that. So I'll just say it again. Our mission is to create a school, to create an environment where each of our students, as students at Beta Hillel High, they obviously have some relationship with Hashem and Torah, both innately and because they chose our school. But we want it to be deeper and more meaningful, both with Hashem and Torah. So that's our mission statement. A little more broadly, everybody knows what Lubavitch is, right? We actually are oft asked, is Beta Hillel High a Lubavitch school? I'm not going to answer that right away. Usually it's asked, it's sometimes asked with a loaded question. I am not Lubavitch, and do I belong in your school? But the Rebbe had a mission, and I'm answering the question about mission, of an Ahavas Yisrael, an acceptance of every person, every Jew, period. And just because the Rebbe had that approach didn't automatically mean that his disciples did, but I'd say that it's a well-known reality that we experience, that when you walk into a Chabad house, there is an unconditional acceptance. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to know X amount or do X amount. At Lubavitch, we accept every Jew, and we hope that we can encourage one mitzvah for one Jew wherever they are. When it comes to schools, I think we've completely dropped the ball. And there's good reasons for that. But to me, a Lubavitch school is to create an environment that students who are seeking more, who are seeking to grow in their Yiddishkeit, they're also seeking a phenomenal general studies education, that there's a school for them, a school for good kids who are looking to grow, but are not coming from uniform environments. The uniformity is that they want us, they opt into growing and learning. Many of them have less Jewish options, but they choose us. But once they choose us, radical acceptance and radical belief in each of our students, like genuinely, authentically, not just bumper stickers, like each student really can and is and can, one of the phrases we use is, each of our students we truly know is perfect. And it's tangible in the environment, and it's the secret sauce, and it really works.
So tell us a little bit about the staff of Beta Hillel.
So
how do you find the staff?
I'm going to boast now, and I think obviously a lot of it is God's blessing. I hire incredibly well. Like, you marry up. So I'm actually not involved directly in the educational element. I'm often not on campus. Rabbi and Mrs. Friedman, so Chaim and Hannah Friedman, respectively, are the principals of the Boys and Girls Division. My wife, for the first 6 years, was the principal of the Girls Division. She's currently, this is a long one, the Director of Educational Advancement.
That's a promotion, I assume.
Oh, yes. And in English, you could translate it as mechaneches. So they really personify. I mean, they can be my parents, but they've had, before they came to us, which was 2 years ago, really demonstrated incredible success at empowering teens, at really helping teens believe in themselves, helping teens grow. They actually like to listen to teens, which I find to be outrageous. Like, they really want to hear what they have to say. And I think that's what makes someone an educator. And our general studies is led by Dr. Susan Bornstein-Forst. She's a esteemed biologist who focuses obviously on science. She leads the science department. Our other Judaic staff, Rabbi Josh Landis, I don't know if you know him, Rabbi Epstein. He's a published author, he's an historian. What's unique about our staff, and this wasn't by design, is that 75% of our general studies staff are also our Judaic staff. So, for instance, our math department is led by Rabbi David Rechavel, so he's licensed as a actuary. He's also a shliach. He teaches Gemara, Chumash, and our 3 highest levels of math. Rabbi Landis runs our social studies department, teaches Gemara and Chumash. Leah Robbins teaches Navi and Chumash and is in our English department. We definitely look for the best teachers possible. Having a joint program allows us to have full-time staff for everything. So we're not having people coming in for an hour and a half or 2 hours. They charge the big bucks, get all their benefits. But yeah, when we got accredited 2.5 years ago by the National Association of Private School Accreditation, one of the remarks were, we've never walked into a school anywhere that each teacher was a bigger Babe Ruth, I'm not sure if you know that reference, Rabbi Epstein, than the next.
Say that one again. What was that again? A bigger what?
A bigger Babe Ruth than the next.
Oh, Babe Ruth than the next.
That's a baseball player from a long time ago, Rabbi Epstein.
Yes, even before my time, if you can believe it. I've had the privilege of having the girls came to my house last year, and I've had some Fabrangans with some of the students. COVID has come and it's disrupted everybody. How has COVID disrupted Beta Hillel High? And what are some ways that you have, like we all have, adjusted on the fly to the unpredictable?
So I'm gonna kind of skip over like the March till the end of last year because it's slightly less.
We don't like to do that.
No, we pivoted well. We went virtual for maybe a month.
Are you in person now? What's going on there now? Are you in person now?
So I was gonna skip over that and we get to the more exciting stuff.
There you go.
So several things happened during the summer. There was many joint meetings between all the educational institutions. So the preschool, elementary, middle school, and the high school. And we work very closely with a clinic. He's actually a community member, Rabbi, Dr. Fox. And he's been on the front line since the start of the pandemic in community testing. And he put together a protocol for us that so before school starts, it's even more excessive than what I'm about to say. But every morning, every staff and every student gets a oral swab COVID test. So we're pull testing every day, every student, every staff. And what that provides for us is any indication of any viral activity at some of the lowest levels that triggers, and it's so far happened once, a 2-day virtual transition where everyone gets retested. If there's a positive case, it's isolated. But we have had no interruptions other than that. There's obviously social distancing. There's mask-ish wearing. We have very, very large facilities and a lot of social distancing. We have about 20% of our students who are virtual because of personal preference. So what happens in our classroom is that the teacher is teaching to our in-person students and to our virtual students. And I've seen and I've spoken to various schools that do it we do it, I think, really, really well. I actually observed 2 classes today where the teacher had some symptoms. I think he was coughing, so he chose not to come into school. And the teacher was virtual, half the students were virtual, and the students were in person, and he ran a Socratic seminar. So that means that there was just a specific topic. It was every student was being graded on their participation and on their arguments and on their a rubric, and it went well. I saw him teach a Gemara class that way. So teacher virtual, which is typically not what happens, in-person students and virtual students. We did a lot of training. We have some pretty decent hardware, but I mean, my wife does take a lead on the IT, and it's just feedback, and feedback. And it's definitely harder to learn for the virtual students, but we make every effort to do what we can. So I would say it's a weird year, but I don't think educationally, I think our students are maybe slightly more serious, slightly more appreciative of being in school. And there's many things they can't do, and I've not heard more than a groan.
Wonderful. Rabbi Bassman, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for all you're doing. It's fantastic. Can you give us one more story, one short story, one event that kind of encapsulates all the hard work that you and your wife have put in and your entire staff to build this really something out of nothing, a much, much needed resource, not only in Milwaukee, as you say, but for Chabad and Chabad houses all around the country when they have students who grow up in a city where there may not be an infrastructure of Jewish education and they need a place to go. And it sounds like you're taking them in. So can you give us one quick story, one little anecdote that perhaps sums up life at Beitar High?
I don't think I can say one that would sum it up. I can tell you my favorite, or one of my favorites.
We'll take anything. We're not picky.
So this is a young man. He's currently my note for his second year. A local boy, so it doesn't really address your angle directly. He actually made a decision out of 8th grade to go to public school for 2 years. And his junior year, he made the decision to transfer to Hillel High for various reasons. He's an incredibly funny kid, great sense of humor, really smart, and quite a critical thinker, a little bit sarcastic. He had a very positive 2 years. He was really happy, and it's a weird thing in our school, but that's I'd say the most important metric. Like if a kid's happy, oh, that's great. That's what we strive for. But he got up at his graduation speech, and he had some really funny jokes. He spoke about, many schools are like a 24 color crayon box. Beitar Hillel High is a 96 color crayon box. But then he turned to Rabbi Friedman, and he said, Rabbi Friedman, and we thought he was gonna, I don't know.
Rabbi Friedman is the principal.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
He said, Rabbi Friedman, I'm not doing it verbatim here, but Rabbi Friedman, I owe you the deepest thanks. Thank you for showing me how to believe. You personify the word mensch, and you demonstrate day in and day out what living a life according to Torah can look like. And he said, Rabbi Friedman, there's been many, many people in my life who have kind of played with the metaphorical pickle jar cap of my relationship with Yiddishkeit, and you so gracefully popped it open. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman, for showing me how to believe.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Rabbi Bassman, for joining us, for sharing, for all that you're doing for all of your current students, your past students, and future students. And we really appreciate it. You make the whole community very, very proud. And we're so grateful that you joined us. And we thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
You guys don't sing that anymore, I bet.
Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, for some Parsha Insights. And every Wednesday night, of course, we feature only the finest and the best from all around the world of Lubavitch. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Rabbi Epstein. Good night.
Good night.